Hey guys, it's Canadian Kyle here at the Wealth Holders Podcast, where we conduct long-form interviews with mining companies, industry experts, and other small-cap stocks. People are an important factor when looking at these investments, and we try and ask the right questions about the company. But we do have this recurrent segment, and it's called The Vault. In The Vault, we ask mentorship-like questions where these guests, they're amazing guests, and they don't get the opportunity to pass down their lessons. So we ask these mentorship-like questions, and it's my favorite part of every interview. But The Vault is not available on YouTube just yet. It's available on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but until I get my subscriber count up, guys, on YouTube, they will not be available. So make sure to like and subscribe. Thanks. Now, it's important to be able to connect with management and have that trust in them, and they need to be able to prove and execute as well. But you need to have a relationship and really trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do, which brings me to this month's sponsor. We have Electric Royalties. They trade on the TSXV under the ticker ELEC. Now, I interviewed Brendan Urich, which I recommend you go check out. The recent interview, he talks about all the progress they've made in 2021. They've been doing well, but what I think really sets them apart is that they are focusing on a huge suite of metals that will be required for this electrification movement. They got cobalt, graphite, lithium, manganese, zinc, vanadium, and more. I'm not familiar with another royalty company that focuses on all these commodities. Now, full disclosure, I do have a position in electric royalties, so please do your own due diligence. But Brendan was the CEO that I personally connected with, so I decided to put my own capital on the line because they have been executed, and I don't think the market has realized quite yet what they have. Now, you might not connect with Brendan and think electric royalties is not the investment or speculation for you. That's okay. Maybe it's today's guest. So, without further ado, let's get on to the show. Hey guys, it's Canadian Kyle here at the Wealth Holders Podcast, and today I'm joined with Joel Freudman. He's the CEO and co-founder of TRU Precious Metals. That's TRU Precious Metals. Ticker symbol is TRUIF on the OTCQB and TRU on the TSXV. It's a gold exploration company in Newfoundland, Eastern Province of Canada. So, Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Kyle. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for joining us. Where are you calling in from anyway?
I am calling from what looks like a bar, but this is my house, maybe with the wine rack back there. I'm based in Toronto, born and raised in Toronto, and I'm running a Fredericton headquartered Newfoundland property junior gold exploration company. So kind of good cross Canada presence here.
I'm at the top of Superior here in Thunder Bay, good old Thunder Bay.
I could tell from the picture in the background.
Yeah. So, Joel, I like starting off very casual with these interviews, and I like asking the guests the same question. What were you doing when you were my age? I'm 25, so what were you doing from 20 to 25 years old?
I'm currently 35. So about 10 years ago, I would have been just graduating from law school and heading on what's ultimately been a wild journey to take me here that I wouldn't have expected. I have a business undergrad degree like yourself. I went to law school partially because I'd written the LSAT, partially because I was trying to get a finance job in the midst of the financial crisis, which wasn't working out so well. So I went to law school, but heavily focused on corporate securities, mergers, law, business, the corporate and commercial legal courses.
Right.
And in 2011, which would have been 10 years ago, I was just graduating from law school and about to start my articling program at a large law firm here in Toronto.
Okay. And how did you end up in mining and exploration, or how did you get to become a CEO of an exploration company?
I was working in private practice for, I don't know, about 2.5 to 3.5 years, depending how you want to look at it. Summer articling, about 2.5 years as an associate. And the firm I worked at was a junior securities boutique focused on junior miners. So they had a couple of, companies with several hundred mil market cap, meaningful size junior miners, and a lot of really, really small, penny stock mining companies that had just kind of kicking around. And because it was a small firm I worked in, there was only 5 lawyers. I got, my first file there was a TSX IPO. where there's like 2 or 3 people from our team. And that was the entire team to, as the client's counsel. I became basically default counsel for probably 10 or 15 junior mining issuers. And so there's all kinds of interesting things that tie back into what I'm doing now. I mean, some of it was understanding the capital markets side. Obviously, I was much more ingrained in the legal and regulatory side, which is very useful for what we do. But I also started to get a sense of kind of the junior mining game and, how it's scrappy and fast moving. I would read 43101 technical reports from a compliance lens, but I would have to actually read through them in order to do that. So I'd start to get a handle on the mining space. And then I spent 3 years at large financial institutions as legal counsel to wealth management groups. So kind of that's the other side of it, which is where the securities actually, get issued and traded amongst the public. And I decided to start, for a couple of things happened personally and professionally, where I thought I see an opportunity here to start a merchant bank, Resurgent Capital, which I currently run. And the niche is I'm going to try and run junior public companies more effectively than a lot of my clients used to back when I was in private practice, because I felt like I'd seen a lot of what could go wrong. And so I thought, well, if I avoid the many, many, many mistakes that I saw, perhaps, I've got a fighting chance at this. And so over the last several years, I've been building up the merchant bank side, doing things like shell restructurings, reverse takeovers, initial public offerings, consulting the private companies looking to go public. So really bridging this public and private company divide. And
that's where the inefficiency is that transition from private to public. Is that where you're trying to?
Well, I think that the public company world it can be foreign if you don't have public company experience. So if you're a private company exec who runs a good business, but you think it's business as usual once you're public, is not the case, especially at a smaller company level where you have to move faster. You have to deal with your share price for things like M&A, financing. There's a whole regulatory angle you never had to deal with when you were private. But I thought in particular, it just kind of evolved, and I initially just thought I'll run small public companies. It's not really that simple. And what I ultimately got into doing is finding broken down companies, typically these mining companies, maybe almost that had been clients, those type of companies that had just kind of collapsed and they're basically inactive in shells. And I would go in and restructure them using my legal background, bring an accounting team, legal, proper board of directors, CFO, put some controls in place, fix any legacy problems. And then you have a new vehicle. So that's something very, very suited to my background as a securities and mergers lawyer. Restructure these corporate vehicles, and then use those as a shell, as a method by which a company can go public in a reverse takeover. And so I guess the inefficiencies are in running the public company. It's very difficult to do, but also in navigating the go public process is very difficult if you haven't been through it before. Or even if you have, but you don't really have a person on your team who can kind of lead the charge, who can quarterback the process, because it's a full-time job in itself, separate from running the company. And so I kind of have developed into this niche, which was just initially this ambiguous concept of, I think I can run an effective small public company, to on one of the shell companies I control, which was called Trius. We did a cleanup and everything. It was in pretty good shape, had some cash. Some of my partners and I said, we got a good corporate vehicle here. It's got money in the bank. What's our next move for the company that will deliver a return for the shareholders, which includes, all the people who put in the risk capital at the very start. And so in August, September of last year, one of my partners said, well, we should go pick up a Newfoundland gold property. Newfound Gold is going public. They hit some crazy drill results. There should be a good runway for that segment of the market, because I think there's a good macro environment for gold. And I've done a number of, internal research projects to support the macro view. And on a micro level, Newfoundland's like a stable jurisdiction. It's in our backyard, relatively speaking, probably a decent place to start down this path. And since then, it's really kind of taken off, where now I've evolved and now I run a junior mineral exploration company. We did a bunch of property acquisitions, built out a team. We're doing corporate finance. We went through a regulatory process, mergers and acquisitions. It's now taken on a life of its own. And so now I'm sitting in front of you as a junior mineral exploration CEO, and hopefully not making all the mistakes that my former clients used to make. But it really it happened a little bit fortuitously. It's like how I said, well, I decided 5 years ago start Resurgent Capital because a few pieces came together. It's the same sort of thing here. We thought, what's going to be a good opportunity that has good short-term and long-term fundamentals as an investment thesis, and how do we execute on it? Let's start a build out of a junior mineral exploration play in Newfoundland. And now we're really here, right? $23 million market cap, probably 15 people on our team, 5 property portfolio. Altius is our largest shareholder. We have institutions in our shareholder base. We're doing a financing with Sprott. Things are happening, but it wasn't overnight success, right? It's been 8 or 9 months of hard work, and we still have a lot of work cut out for us in delivering, results to the market and continuing to build and grow the company. So you sometimes got to seize on the interesting opportunities that are presented to you. And this is one that was available to me. And here I am, and I'm happy to be doing it.
The first exploration company you're CEO of, and how long has it been trading for now, TRU Precious Metals?
We really got going, I think, with the build out in September 2020. So let's call it 9 months. It's really only been the last 2 weeks that it's resumed trading. We were halted for the start of this year for this whole confluence of big events for the company. We signed up a deal with Altius, who's listed on the TSX. They're about 700 million, 800 million market cap company, very savvy Newfoundland-based mining and royalty company. So we signed up a deal to option their property from them called Golden Rose. It's our flagship asset. And so the stock exchange said, well, this looks like a very big change from your current business model. You have to go through a change of business. So it's like, now we have our Altius option deal, major M&A transaction, and we have TSX Venture change of business, major regulatory process. It's not a punishment. It's more like you have to give investors disclosure. You've changed your business model. So we've got those 2 initiatives on the go. And then we said, okay, well, the market is financing these companies now. We should raise money. So then we said, let's go do a financing as well. So we did a $3.5 million heavily oversubscribed private placement in the midst of that as well back in March. That's where we got a lead order from Palisades Gold Corp, who's like a resource merchant bank, a number of other institutions. And then in mid-May, we closed our Altius deal, closed our TSXV change of business, collected the proceeds from the financing, which had been held in escrow until the deal closed, and resumed trading on May 14th. And so now we've been really back up and running 2.5 weeks. Our share price has gone from 29 pre-halt to the low 40s today, trading good volume, which is nice to see some liquidity and market following our stock. There's good participation across a bunch of brokerages. We have a number of brokerages, whose clients are meaningful holders of our shares. And now we're really on to life as a junior mineral exploration company. Right? It's time for us to get out there and explore and also come up with other ways at the corporate level, things like mergers and acquisitions or property divestitures that could enhance, build the value of the company and further the company and its game plan, separate from just exploration, which we also, of course, have to do, and which we're in the midst of doing as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I have a few questions, but let's have you explain the backdrop of Newfoundland and what's going on in Newfoundland. And I want to figure out, are you just an area play? Like, why? Talk about the properties you currently have and the history of Newfoundland and where you're located.
I think initially the strategy, just to be pretty forthright, initially the strategy is get into the area. I think this is probably the strategy for most juniors. Initially, unless you have one of the top couple of properties right off the bat, you would have to take the area play strategy, because you're not familiar enough with the situation on the ground to say, I know exactly where the good properties are, and some of them may have been snatched up. That's how I think it usually starts. The difference for us is we refined our property acquisition strategy through a series of M&A deals. We did 5 property deals in 5 months. So like a very aggressive, newspapers were saying like this is an aggressively acquisitive company, which I love as a deals lawyer by training. And we were doing deals, and we were trying to find what we thought would be decent properties to add to the portfolio. But eventually we started getting a sense of you're dealing with geology. Certain locations are much better than others. And so we refined our property strategy as we went, so that I'd say at this point we have 5 properties in portfolio. We have some of them are more, we hope they're in a good neighborhood, right? I'd say, so those are what I consider non-core assets. Now, it doesn't mean they don't have geological merit, because some of the geologists, who's frankly their word means more than mine on geological matters, they can see different aspects of merit in some of our properties. So we have Rolling Pond. It borders on the Newfound Gold Queensway project. There's a large quartz system through there, which basically is where you typically look to find gold. We have several geologists who like that, including a geophysicist who he thinks is a good property. We have Gander West, which is mostly unexplored, which is about 16 kilometers from where Newfound is drilling all their extremely high grade gold. And so that's like a blue sky potential property. There's quartz veins on the property. Again, the type of mineralization you'd look for to find gold. And that's in the right neighborhood. And then we have another one, Stony Lake, which there's some gold showings on the property, which is near our Twilight project, which is, I guess one of our core company projects.
Yep.
So those are the three that are like, they're in a good neighborhood. And hopefully as we do exploration, we can determine better what's the geological merit of each of these properties. So we have two properties that I would consider core to the company. And the reason, just based on like the first glance at those projects, and the reason I would say they're considered core is because ultimately the property's success or failure will come down to its geological merit. And I actually tend to talk about this pretty often. There's a Cape Ray Valentine Lake shear zone is a geological feature. It's a structural corridor that runs diagonally through the province. And that's where the known gold is in meaningful quantities in Newfoundland. So like there's this one diagonal street that goes through the province. At the very bottom of the street is, I don't know if you want me to pull up, should I pull up a slide for this would a diagram help, or do you not?
I can pull it up when I create the video. I'll pull one up for you. Yeah.
But I think the picture speaks, 1,000 words in this case. There's this diagonal line, and at the bottom of the line, there's a company called Matador Mining. They have 840,000 ounces of gold deposit. You go up the diagonal line, the next property over is Golden Rose, which is our flagship asset. That's what we're getting from Altius. And there's kind of gold showings dotted all the way along this diagonal line on our property, 6 or 7 known gold showings. There's one area that had a lot of drilling, which would be a natural target to start drilling at, because there's been historical drilling, which is, starting to firm up what looks like there could be something there. Based on historical drilling, other people have already paid for and done. Further up the line, right beside Golden Rose that we have, is Marathon Gold. And their Valentine Lake project is like 4 million plus ounces. They're adding ounces every day. They're constantly coming out with new exploration work. They just raised 50 million bucks, including from one of the founders of Franco-Nevada. They're like very much on the map. So we're sandwiched between 840,000 ounces of gold, 4.1 million ounces of gold. Here's TRU. Good spot to be in. And then if you move further up the street, this Twilight Gold project, that's further up the street on the same diagonal, on the same Cape Ray Valentine Lake shear zone. And it's had limited drilling. That drilling was also hitting decent gold grades. And so, if you want to be on kind of the right street in Newfoundland, we have two properties on the right street. And that's why I'd say, we're at this point, I'd say we're beyond the area play. We've refined the property strategy. I'd say we're probably done acquiring new properties unless it's consolidation. Right. So maybe we want to consolidate land around our existing core property packages, but they're ideally located on a deposit bearing geological structure. And that would be where you would look to find more gold. It's like, what better place than beside where there's a bunch of gold?
So the Golden Rose and the Twilight Zone are your two key ones. And you mentioned Divesting. Would you, because you own real estate in a really hot market right now, would you divest in those other three properties? Because for me, share structure is important, and I want to see tight share structure. And so would you divest in those?
Yeah, it's funny you refer to it as real estate, because I also find it like, I think that's if you want to look at mining as a business, you need to know the geology, but it is kind of real estate, right? Like it is location. And so like Golden Rose is not going anywhere. Flagship asset. It's beside Merit. It's between these two deposits, Yep. That's going to see a lot of work from us. We have a $1.6 million budget just for the rest of the year, which is pretty good ground coverage, as well as then follow on drilling. Twilight Gold, which is further up the structure. We just announced drilling this morning, so we're doing a targeted program. Depending on the results, that's the type of property that could attract partners. It really depends on the results. I don't think we'd want to just hand that over. But depends how a transaction for that might look. If there's some good results and there's interest, we do have to explore other ways that could benefit the company. So if you're talking about share structure, if we could do a deal like an option or a JV deal that brings in cash and or shares, that's probably a good deal for the company, but we'd want to, participate in future upside. The other three properties, because we're still a small company ultimately, we have I think 4 to 6 person field crew for the summer, plus our VP property development, plus our exploration manager. So, we have 6 or 7 people on the ground, but it's still, you could almost task those people to 1 or 2 projects. So 5 projects is, we can do the bare minimum work across the projects to keep them all in our portfolio. So we're not a desperate seller, right? Like there's no rush on our end. We can hold those properties indefinitely and see if there's discoveries around them. But if there's the right opportunity to transact on the 3 non-core properties where we don't have the personnel resources, financial, we're fine. Personnel resources, we don't have to devote adequate time. Maybe those properties are better off in someone's hands. Again, whether as an option or where we have some sort of upside potential to benefit, whether it's shares or, a royalty, or we just outright divest of them to newer entrants whose only hope at this point is the area play strategy. Mm-hmm. Or they already have an existing property portfolio and our properties would actually be like a tuck-in for them. So those are certainly things we entertain. And I think our history has shown we're very acquisitive. The last few weeks has really been busy with kind of setting up as, okay, we're trading again. We have to get our exploration program set up, drilling in particular at Twilight's, meaningful undertaking. We had to get our financials approved, like a lot of back to business type of work. We're getting marketing set up. We're reaching out again to our shareholder base, like letting people know we're back in business. And I think within the coming weeks and months would be the time for us to start turning our attention again towards M&A.
Right.
I think consolidation in this region is going to be inevitable. Just you don't have majors and mid tiers really in there yet, but you're seeing the money come in from some of these groups, and so I think it's a matter of time.
That's what I was going to ask, because I look at a CEO and I'm like, what is his skill set? And you have the background of M&A. So I was wondering, is TRU going to be a takeover target? Is it going to be willing to consolidate? I'm trying to figure out what kind of exploration company are you because there are different kinds.
Sure. Mm-hmm. I started to use the phrase we're deals oriented because we are. It would be very interesting to be a consolidator. I think that's a cool role to play at this point. And it ties back into your earlier question about share structure. We don't want to go issue shares all over the place, especially at this point. Now that we're cashed up, we've got money to run explorations. We have enough value drivers for the company. We want to try and be mindful of our capitalization structure. So to do a takeover, to do a corporate level takeover, which would be really interesting, mm-hmm. and which is something I think about every day, including today. The target would have to make sense. People keep telling me you don't want to do an M&A deal at a corporate level unless it's like a 1 + 1 = 3 or some sort of thing like that, where there really there's synergies or there's some enhanced presence that's bigger than the individual components. So I do keep that in mind. And corporate M&A for that reason has to be very strategic, very targeted, a lot of thought put into it. Property level M&A, we're kind of ready to do that. I think especially consolidating small property packages around our core properties is a strategic move that can be done fairly cheaply, probably non-dilutively if you're doing mostly cash or weighted towards cash deals. And they're just not as large size-wise where you'd have to undertake the dilution and also the diversion of management resources to execute. So it would be great if we're a takeout target. I wouldn't be unhappy with that. I think our shareholders would be pleased with that too. To the extent we can consolidate property and or competitors, we will. Mm-hmm. We just want to be judicious in how we execute the M&A program, and not take on. It's kind of a fine balance. So you don't take on too much, and you don't want to kind of damage the cap structure, but you sometimes have to grow and you have to use your stock as currency, or you have to make well-timed strikes to take out other companies and properties. So I'd say we're a deals-focused explorer who will also be putting money in the ground. And I think those are probably the two main thrusts of how we can develop value at the company: exploration and M&A.
Sure, thank you. So I also like looking at who the CEO is, what their background is. So you don't have the geology background. So tell me, who is your geologist team? Who are the boots on the ground? Who are the guys putting the straws in the ground?
We have a lifesaver vice president of property development. His name's Barry Green. He actually brought us the Twilight Gold project, which is one of those two I mentioned on the Cape Ray Valentine Lake Shear Zone. He was initially just doing a bit of consulting for us when he brought us this property. We enjoyed working with him, so we brought him on full time as vice president of property development. And even the thinking is, normally people call him VP exploration. The reason we have him as property development, like real estate, is because he has to develop those properties. So maybe it's by exploring, maybe it's by option or JV. Like there is an M&A slant to his role even. So Barry's got over 30 years of experience. He is a geoscientist by training, a professional geologist, right? He's registered. He worked for a public company in an executive role on the exploration side for about 16 years. He's worked at like Wood PLC, AMEC Foster Wheeler, like geological consulting firms as well. So he's got kind of industry consulting background. He's in Grand Falls, Windsor, which is a 15-minute drive from Twilight Gold. It's an hour drive to our Rolling Pond property, a couple hours drive to the Golden Rose project. And you can drive to all these projects too, right? They're not in the middle of like an Amazonian rainforest. They're like you're accessible by a logging road. So Barry's our point man on the ground. Very lucky to have him. And then he's actually managed to recruit from a company called Maritime, who is putting their own small gold mine into production. He recruited a guy named Pierce Bradley, also over 30 years of experience, also a professional geologist, also Newfoundland based, and Pierce is our exploration manager. So Pierce is the guy who's like overseeing more of the day-to-day and implementing and managing the exploration programs. And between Barry and Pierce, they've got the combined like 60 years plus of geological experience. They've seen quite a bit. Barry's worked internationally, number of projects internationally as well as in Canada. I think Pierce is more Newfoundland focused, but both these guys just decades and decades of experience on the geological side and both registered geologists. So those are the people we have running the exploration program. We also have someone on our board. His name's David Halatke. He's Vancouver based. He's also got international experience across all of North America. Also a professional geologist, over 2 decades of experience. He worked on a mine in, I think it was Mexico, that got sold to Agnico Eagle. So like we have good bench strength for the geological side of our company, which is good as a mineral exploration company that we need that, right? To be successful. So it's very important. So those are 3 core people in the management and board ranks who are geos. Plus, we have some consultants. We have a company called Gold Spot Discoveries. They use artificial intelligence technology to help refine drill targets, analyze volumes and volumes of exploration data to compile things like models to help target our exploration. So like they're a technical consultant to us. So we're in a good position now. Several members, I should add, even though this is I say these kind of things more internally. So I don't know how exciting they are in interviews, but this really is a testament to the company. We have a number of field crew who would normally just be prospectors. So, the guys who know how to go and find rocks in the field and who are skilled at it. Several of our field crew guys are professional geologists as well. So not only can they go in the field and say the rock looks nice, but they can say, oh, here's the structural feature, and this is why I think this type of rock might be a better sample than this one. I think it's an additional tier of expertise within our field crew. That's probably, it's not the default, right? I'm sure other people have it. It's a good little edge we have in terms of a very, well-educated field crew. So kind of at all levels of the organization, we want to hire the best people we can attain to give ourselves the best shot for success.
For sure. One thing I want to share with the listeners is, if you haven't listened to my interview, I did interview Dennis Lavalette from Gold Spot Discoveries.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of people don't know that Newfound Gold and Gold Spot were one entity, and they broke up, right? And became 2 separate entities. And Newfound Gold, a lot of people know that company now, a $1.4 billion company now. But maybe explain about this technology that Gold Spot has. And I'm assuming it was their help that made you decide, because you just released a 2021 drill program, right? Why don't you go ahead and talk about that?
Sure. we've onboarded Goldspot. They provide technical services to us, so we feed them data from our exploration programs, and they can put it through their various technological models. And it's not just a computer company. Like, they have probably an army of like 20 or 30 highly educated, highly skilled technical people on staff as well. So they work in a bit of a collaborative approach with us to refine the data we provide them, run their technological model, plus applying the human judgment to refine and focus our exploration work, and specifically things like drilling, like more dollar intensive, that kind of have higher risk, higher reward potential, perhaps. Drilling is where you prove out your what you've got in the ground, of course. So we've been working with them for a couple of months. They are going to help us a bit with Twilight, which is where we're drilling now. That's part of our program. We're running a minimum 1,200 meter drilling program that we literally just announced this morning. We also did announce our general exploration plans for the summer yesterday, May 31st. And so these are plans that we have to execute now, but these are plans we've already budgeted for. We've already allocated resources, like personnel resources too. We've already scoped out kind of what the programs would look like. And so it involves the Twilight drilling. We did some surface level work at Gander West, which is like the the grassroots or greenfield project. Got my colors mixed up. We've got some soil sampling work at Rolling Pond, which is right beside Newfound Gold, where they had some till sampling gold anomalies. And we're going to have a comprehensive ground coverage program at Golden Rose, which is along between the two deposits. And we're going to go along the strike length of what's between those two deposits and test out the existing gold showings to see where we're going to want to drill later this year. And that's Golden Rose in particular is where we're going to draw on Goldspot quite a bit, because it's the largest land package we have. There's a lot of ground to cover. And in order to most effectively target our drilling, we're going to have mountains of data that we're going to want their help with processing and analyzing and telling us, well, here's we think you could orient your drill programs this way, or we think there might be, the structure might, have a kink here or there around this pond. So we're going to have them more involved. It's an interesting, like, the more data we have for them, the more effective they are at their jobs as well. So part of our job now is generate some data. Ideally, that's, highly prospective. We'll get some good results, frankly, feed it into them. And then they'll come back to us and say, okay, well, here now we've got more data to work with. We can do a better job for you targeting, helping you target your exploration work going forward.
I'm curious. I know they have an investment portfolio. Is TRU Precious Metals a part of are they shareholders of your company yet?
They are shareholders of TRU.
Yeah. Okay.
Which we're fortunate to have their support.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's capital well spent. It's capital well spent for sure.
Yeah. Well, we're a small company, right? So even though I rattled off, a number of very strong people associated with our company, the ability to have an external service provider who has a small army of bench strength in the technical services field is invaluable to a small company like ours who needs to draw on that expertise.
Mm-hmm. So my uncle's Newfie, actually. So how long is a season there anyway before there's 6 feet of snow drifts, and like how much work can you get done in a year?
The weather's a challenge. So Newfoundland is good because you can explore year round. But you can't do groundwork in the winter. So you can't do prospecting, rock sampling, geophysical. Like, you can't do any of that stuff in the winter because there's the 6 feet snow and it's very cold. I was out there last November, and I think we had a guy whose day was cut short because of snow. So like, it does happen. Drilling can go year round. Our Twilight Gold project is 15 minutes from our VP Barry's house. It's accessible via Forest Road. So we're drilling now, but we could also be drilling there in the winter if we want to, or pretty much anywhere. Golden Rose, where we actually are planning to be drilling later this year, which would tail into winter, that's also accessible via, it's called the Burgeo Highway. So like, there's a highway that runs through that property, which is again, really good to get a drill out there. And we've been systematic with our exploration program to do a lot of this field work, ground level work at our properties this summer, when we can get people out there to be doing things like collecting samples and mapping the ground, so that we're set up to do drilling in the winter, and in particular Golden Rose. But I mean, across our property portfolio, it's all summer field work now. so that we can be working the key properties over the winter.
Right, for sure. So, okay, you've given us your 2021 plan. What about your 3 to 5 year plan? Like, why should we invest in TRU and not exploit or Newfound Gold or any of these other 40 plus companies in the Newfoundland district?
Sure. I think, let's see if I could come up with maybe the three catalysts. Number one, location. Not everyone has properties on the shear zone, which is the deposit bearing structure. So that automatically rules out a whole bunch of people who are in the mid, literally in the middle in terms of geographical location, who are more hoping than saying we're on the right street. We know we're on the right street. Doesn't mean we have, what our neighbors have, but I'll take our chance over someone who's just in the middle and saying, well, we're not near anything, but we hope. So number one is location of our core properties, Twilight Gold, Golden Rose, both on the shear zone. Number two would be, I'd say like the transactional nature of the company, which is, I don't know how big we can grow the company, but by 3 to 5 years is a long time frame to look out to. I think the best we can do is set up for our exploration season this year, but alongside the property consolidation and corporate M&A to the extent we can find good targets, so that even by the end of the year, our 3 to 5 year plan a year from now might look very different. The company might look very different. So I'd say transactional is good because, again, if you don't drill one property, if it doesn't drill well or something, or the results aren't great, you can't just say, well, we're sunk, we can't do more exploration. You have to find other ways to grow the company. And I think the third thing is, I would say we're undervalued relative to comps. We are earlier. So, and Newfound's like, they've got bonanza grade drill results. Like, they are in their own league of their own, right? You have Marathon, who's beside us, they're like 600 mil market cap. They're building a mine in the next 2 years. So they're also like, they're TSX listed, right? They're miles ahead of the field. So in terms of some of the other ones you mentioned, and just generally like the field out there, why would I say we're undervalued? Well, we've only recently resumed trading. We've barely set foot on our properties to date, right? So there's meaningful exploration upside potential ahead. And we're trying to take risk mitigation during our exploration so that, we try and mitigate potential downside while still, just being conscientious and prudent with things like our drilling program or the way we go about exploration. So we don't just say, oh, let's just go drill blindly and hope for the best. Like, that's not our approach. And really just trying to be kind of systematic with how we set up the company to make kind of smart moves over the rest of the course of the year to grow into a market cap or a valuation that's closer to, maybe it is the Sokoman exploits, like people who've done a lot more work than us. We think we've got the other combinations of things. We've got good, some very prospective properties. We've got a good team that's looking to do deals. If we can execute on the plans we set out, we should be growing towards the market caps of some of these other companies. So it's much harder to go from $1 billion market cap to 2 billion, but from 25 mil to 50 mil is not nearly as difficult. From 25 mil to 100 mil is not nearly as difficult. It's really like, it's our job to execute and deliver exploration results.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. Well, we've had a lot of talk about the company, and that's why I like this segment called The Vault, is where I can pick apart some mentorship advice from you. So we'll get into the vault soon because we're running low on time, but just to let everyone know, it's not available on YouTube until I get my subscriber count up. So make sure to like and subscribe, share, get the word out.
Smart.
We do this every Saturday. We release these every Saturday, so you can expect that. But yeah, let's get into some good old vault questions.
You have to shoot in the path. Like, you want to go down the path you're interested in. You want to commit, like I say, the never say die. Like, you want to be committed to where you're trying to get to, but what exactly that looks like, what exactly success looks like for you in progress, that you have to appreciate will evolve a bit as you go. Like, I've already had several jobs, lawyer, in-house counsel, right? Just generally running shell companies, running a junior gold company. Like, this is all in the last 10 years. And so I think for someone 25 or so, and they're coming out of school, or maybe they're coming out of their first job and they took it and it sucked just because they wanted a job after university, which, like, it happens. That's not going to be your last job, but you want your next job to be more purposeful step in the direction you're trying to get towards. And that's more where some of the tenacity comes in, and you want to leave everyone with a good impression. He or she came in, they worked hard, they're here to do an honest day's work. They're a good team player. They're trying to be like nice and help the people around them. That will help guide you in your career path. And I think probably personally, right? In terms of like finding a partner, or you want to buy a home, or you want to relocate, your life or something. As you set out on a path and commit to the path, but just be aware the path may wind and still take you to your direction or your ultimate goal.
I love that. That's really well said.
Thanks.
Thank you, Joel. I like letting my guests end the conversation. So here's your time for a plug. Anything you want to say about the company, anything at all, Joel, you close us off, please.
I appreciate the opportunity, Kyle. I think this is a good segment. I, of course, encourage your viewers to take a look at TRU Precious Metals, TRU on the TSX Venture, TRUIF on the OTCQB Venture. Unexpectedly, we are building a junior gold mineral exploration company in central Newfoundland with some prime properties, with a hardworking team, with a very motivated and engaged shareholder base, institutional, retail, high net worth. We're doing the best we can. We still have to deliver exploration, but at least keep an eye on us or take a bet on us, whatever you think is appropriate for situation. But watch out for us, because it is our mission to deliver. And I'm going to be held accountable based on interviews like this. So keep an eye on us.
What was you saying again? Relentlessly
working to unlock shareholder value. True say.
Perfect. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Kyle.